The Arizona desert stretched endlessly under a sky ablaze with the fury of a setting sun, crimson, amber, and violet bleeding into the horizon like a wound torn across the heavens. A restless breeze stirred brittle mesquite bushes, carrying the smoky scent of burning wood and sizzling venison across a low hill where the cowboys of Red Canyon Ranch had carved out a fleeting moment of peace. Weeks of herding cattle through sun-scorched sands, dodging rattlesnakes, and outrunning bandits had left them weary to their bones, and this cowboy picnic was a hard-won respite, a rare chance to laugh, eat, and forget the Wild West's unrelenting dangers. The campfire crackled, its flames dancing in the twilight, mingling with the mournful twang of a guitar. Jack Coyote Wilson, a lean figure with sun-bleached hair and a jagged scar slicing through his left eyebrow, sat cross-legged on a tattered blanket, his calloused fingers coaxing a haunting melody from the strings. His weathered Stetson rested beside him, revealing blue eyes that carried the weight of a man haunted by ghosts he could never outride. At 32, Jack was a legend among ranchers, a sharpshooter with a lightning draw and a silver tongue, but beneath his roguish charm lay a secret that gnawed at his soul. 5 years ago he joined a desperate stagecoach robbery to save his family's ranch from foreclosure, a choice that left blood on his hands and a cursed artifact, a silver locket etched with a coyote's head, rumored to bring doom, in his pocket. The locket, stolen from a legendary outlaw named Silas Blackthorn, was said to hold the key to a hidden fortune, but it came with a curse. Those who carried it would never know peace. Around the fire, 11 figures formed a ragged circle, their laughter and stories a fragile shield against the vast, treacherous desert. Samuel Sam Garrett, Jack's oldest friend and the ranch's steadiest hand, knelt by the flames, turning a rack of venison with the precision of a man who'd cooked over open fire since boyhood. His dark beard was flecked with gray, and his hawk-like eyes scanned the horizon, always alert for trouble. Billy Turner, a 16-year-old cook's apprentice with freckles and boundless enthusiasm, tore into a hunk of cornbread, his youthful grin a stark contrast to the hardened men around him. Old Tom Haskell, a grizzled veteran with a limp from a long-ago horse fall, whittled a stick while spinning tales of his days riding with the Pony Express, his gravelly voice weaving stories of lost trails and forgotten heroes. Red Callahan, a burly redhead with a booming laugh, swapped jabs with Caleb Moore, a quiet drifter whose harmonica spoke louder than his words. The Dawson brothers, Nate and Eli, bickered over a flask of whiskey, their sibling rivalry a constant hum beneath their fierce loyalty. Clara Wade, the only woman among the cowboys, was a tough-as-nails wrangler with a sharp tongue and sharper aim. A sharp tongue and sharper aim defined Clara Wade, the sole woman among the cowboys, her bandana a badge of her hard-earned place. Marcus Reed, a wiry newcomer with shifty eyes, sat apart, his silence a discord in the group's camaraderie. Lena Harper, a recent addition and Ella Harper's estranged sister, watched the flames with a guarded expression, her past a mystery even to Clara. Jonah Tate, a grizzled tracker with a penchant for tall tales, chewed tobacco and muttered about omens. And lastly, Amos Doc Brennan, the ranch's medic, patched up minor wounds with a steady hand, his spectacles glinting in the firelight. The group was a patchwork of loyalty, secrets, and unspoken tensions, bound by the unforgiving code of the frontier. "Play something lively, Jack," Billy called, crumbs tumbling from his mouth. "Your songs are so damn mournful, the coyotes'll start crying for mercy." The men laughed, and Jack's lips curled into a sly grin, though his eyes remained vigilant, always scanning the shadows. Coyotes might cry, kid, but bandits, they'd steer clear of this fire tonight. Too much trouble for 'em. His voice, roughened by years of dust and tobacco, carried a warmth that eased the group's tension, but there was an edge to it, a man who knew trouble was never far. The locket in his pocket felt heavier tonight, its curse a whisper in his mind. Sam paused, a skewer of meat in hand, his gaze fixed on the darkening plains. "Don't jinx it, Coyote," he muttered. "The desert's got a way of biting when you're not looking." The laughter faded, replaced by a shared unease. The Wild West was a land of beauty and betrayal, where peace was as fleeting as a mirage. Still, the picnic was a slice of paradise. Grilled venison dripping with fat, baked beans simmering in a cast-iron pot, cornbread golden from the skillet, and whiskey that burned the throat and warmed the soul. Blankets were spread across the dusty ground, saddles and bedrolls piled nearby, and the men's hats were tilted back, revealing faces etched by sun and hardship. Clara adjusted her bandana, her sharp eyes catching Jack's for a moment, a silent acknowledgement of the dangers they all faced. Lena's gaze lingered on the fire, her thoughts distant, perhaps on her sister Ella, whom she hadn't seen in years. Jonah spat tobacco into the dirt, muttering about a red moon being a bad omen. Doc Brennan checked his medical kit, ever prepared. The fire cast flickering shadows across the mesquite trees, and for a fleeting moment, it felt like the world held its breath. That moment shattered with the sharp crack of a rifle shot. The bullet tore through the air, striking the skillet by the fire and sending a spray of beans into the dust. Instinct kicked in like a spur to a stallion. Jack and Sam dove behind a large boulder, their Colt revolvers drawn in a heartbeat. Billy dropped his cornbread and scrambled into the tall grass, his heart pounding like a war drum. Tom rolled behind the supply cart, his Winchester rifle at the ready. Red, Caleb, and the Dawson brothers took cover behind a tipped-over wagon, its weathered wood creaking under their weight. Clara crouched beside a rock, her revolver steady, her eyes blazing with defiance. Lena drew a hidden knife, her movements swift but cautious. Jonah and Doc ducked behind a pile of saddles, their weapons ready. Marcus hesitated a fraction too long, his eyes darting toward the horizon before he ducked behind a mesquite bush. His movements too calculated, too deliberate. The fire hissed as spilled beans sizzled, and Jack's guitar lay abandoned, its strings silent in the chaos. "Who's out there?" Jack hissed, peering over the boulder, his revolver glinting in the firelight. The locket in his pocket seemed to burn against his chest, its curse whispering of doom. Sam squinted into the dusk, his eyes tracking movement in the distance. 6 riders coming fast. Too damn fast. Silhouettes emerged against the fading light. 6 figures on horseback, cloaked in long duster coats that billowed like specters in the wind. Their wide-brimmed hats shadowed their faces, but their movements were fluid, almost graceful, unlike the heavy swagger of typical bandits. As they drew closer, their forms became clearer, and Jack's breath caught in his throat. "Women," he whispered, disbelief lacing his voice. "Not just women," Sam growled, his grip tightening on his revolver. "That's the Black Widows." The name sent a chill through the group, colder than the desert night. The Black Widows were a legend in the Wild West, a gang of female bounty hunters whose reputation struck fear into outlaws and lawmen alike. Led by Rosa Bloody Rose Morgan, they were a storm of vengeance, ruthless, precise, and relentless. Rosa, a tall woman with a dark braid and eyes like polished obsidian, was said to shoot a man's hat off at 100 yards, her Winchester an extension of her will. Lily Scorpion Vance, her second in command, wielded twin revolvers with deadly grace, her speed unmatched by any gunslinger. Anna Shadow Tate, the silent sniper and Jonah's estranged sister, could hit a dime from half a mile, her cold precision a stark contrast to her brother's warmth. The twins, Kate and Mary Bell, were masters of knives, their movements synchronized like a deadly dance. Ella Red Harper, Lena's estranged sister, was a prodigy with a lasso, her red hair a fiery beacon in the night. And Clara Viper Dunn, the tracker, knew the desert like a lover, making escape impossible. They weren't just bounty hunters. They were predators, and someone had put a price on a head. Rosa rode at the front, her black stallion gleaming under the rising moon. Her braid swung beneath her hat, and her Winchester rested casually across her saddle, its barrel catching the firelight. She reined in her horse, her voice cutting through the night like a blade. "Jack Wilson, come out, coyote, or your friends die tonight." Jack's jaw tightened, his mind racing. 3 years ago he'd crossed paths with Amos Clay, a crooked banker in Tucson who'd swindled ranchers with forged land deeds. Jack had exposed him, costing Clay his fortune and earning the undying hatred of his son, Jonathan Clay. But there was a deeper wound, one tied to the locket in his pocket. 5 years ago, Jack had joined a desperate stagecoach robbery orchestrated by Silas Blackthorne, a notorious outlaw whose legend still haunted the frontier. The robbery was meant to save Jack's family ranch, but it went wrong. Silas betrayed his crew, and Jack's friend Diego, Rosa's brother, was killed in the chaos. Jack fled, taking the locket, not knowing its curse or its connection to Blackthorne's hidden fortune, a treasure said to be buried in the desert, guarded by a secret society known as the Order of the Coyote. Now, Jack wondered, was Rosa here for Clay's bounty, or had she uncovered his role in Diego's death? And who else was hunting the locket's secrets? "It's about Tucson, isn't it?" Jack muttered to Sam, his hand brushing the locket. "Or Diego. Or this damn thing. $10,000 on your head, I'd wager," Sam replied, checking his revolver cylinder. "Clay's got the money, and you've got ghosts." The cowboys returned fire, their bullets kicking up dust around the approaching riders. Red let out a whoop as he fired his shotgun, the blast echoing across the hill. Caleb, his harmonica forgotten, aimed his pistol with steady hands, his quiet demeanor hiding a deadly focus. Nate and Eli fired in tandem, their shots wild but enough to keep the widows at bay. Tom took careful aim with his rifle, his bad leg trembling but his focus unshaken. Clara's revolver barked, her shots precise, her face a mask of determination. Lena's knife gleamed as she scanned the shadows, her eyes locking on Ella among the widows, a flicker of pain crossing her face. Jonah spat tobacco and fired, muttering about Anna's betrayal years ago. Doc Brennan stayed low, ready to patch wounds. Marcus fired sparingly, his shots missing, his mirror flashing signals into the darkness. Jack's suspicion grew. Marcus, the drifter who joined a month ago claiming to be from Nevada, was no cowboy. His stories never added up, and now his actions screamed betrayal. "We're outgunned," Tom shouted, ducking as a bullet splintered the cart's edge. "These gals shoot like they were born with rifles." The Black Widows were a whirlwind of death. Lily's twin revolvers blazed, clipping Red in the shoulder, sending him cursing behind the wagon. Anna's sniper shots from the shadows forced the cowboys to keep their heads down, her precision a bitter reminder to Jonah of their fractured bond. Kate and Mary darted through the darkness, their knives glinting as they closed in on Nate and Eli. Ella's lasso whipped through the air, narrowly missing Caleb, her eyes briefly meeting Lena's with a mix of recognition and resentment. Viper Dunn circled the hill on her horse, her tracker's eyes scanning for stragglers, her movements methodical. Rosa fired sparingly, each shot a warning of her deadly skill, her gaze fixed on Jack as if she could see the locket through his coat. The cowboys were holding their own, but their ammunition was dwindling, and the widows showed no sign of relenting. Jack's eyes caught Marcus again, his mirror flashing in the moonlight, signaling to someone beyond the widows. A cold realization hit. Marcus wasn't just working for Clay. He was a pawn of the Order of the Coyote, the secret society tied to Silas Blackthorne's treasure. The locket was their prize, and Jack was their target. But there was no time to confront him. The fight was too intense, the air thick with gunpowder and dust. "We can't stay here," Jack whispered to Sam, his hand clutching the locket. "They'll pick us off one by one." The sun hung low over the parched plains of New Mexico, 1873, painting the horizon in hues of blood and gold. Dust swirled around the hooves of a lone horse, its rider a shadow against the fading light. Jack Silent Carter, a man whose name was whispered in saloons and feared in the lawless corners of the frontier, rode with a weight heavier than the revolver at his hip. His weathered face, etched with lines of regret, told a story of a life spent chasing bounties and running from ghosts. At 40, Jack was tired of the blood, the betrayal, and the endless trails that led nowhere but to more pain. He pulled a crumpled letter from his duster, its edges worn from days of handling. The words, scrawled in the hasty hand of his old friend William Holt, burned in his mind. "Jack, I'm in trouble. Raiders hit the ranch again. They leave no tracks, just a burned star on the gate. Need you. Come quick. William had saved Jack's life once, pulling him from a burning stagecoach ambush when they were young and reckless. That debt, unpaid for 20 years, had dragged Jack back into the saddle for one last ride. The trail to Holt's ranch stretched across the barren landscape, where cacti stood like sentinels and the wind carried whispers of forgotten legends. Jack's horse, a sturdy bay named Cinder, snorted as they crested a ridge. Below, the ranch sprawled, a cluster of weathered buildings surrounded by corrals, dwarfed by the vast emptiness. But something was wrong. No smoke rose from the chimney. No hands worked the fields. The gate bore a charred mark, a 5-pointed star jagged and uneven like a wound in the wood. Jack dismounted, his boots crunching on the dry earth. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the creak of the gate as he pushed it open. The ranch house door hung ajar, and inside chaos reigned. Furniture overturned, papers scattered. His heart sank as he stepped into the dim interior, the air thick with a coppery scent of blood. William lay slumped against the wall, his eyes staring blankly, a bullet hole in his chest. Jack knelt beside him, his throat tight. "Damn it, Will," he muttered, closing his friend's eyes. "I was too late." A rustle from the shadows snapped him to attention, his hand flying to his revolver. A young woman emerged, her dark hair tangled, her eyes blazing with fury. She held a rifle, its barrel trained on Jack's chest. "Who the hell are you?" she demanded, her voice trembling but fierce. "Easy, girl," Jack said, raising his hands. "I'm Jack Carter, friend of William's. I got his letter." The rifle wavered, but her gaze didn't soften. "You're too late. He's dead. They came last night, them raiders. Left that cursed star again." She lowered the gun slightly, her shoulders sagging. "I'm Sarah, William's daughter." Jack's breath caught. Sarah. The name stirred something deep, a memory buried under years of pain. But he pushed it aside. "I'm here to help," he said. "Tell me everything." Sarah's story spilled out in fragments. The raids had started months ago. Cattle stolen, barns burned, hands driven off. The raiders, called the Phantom Gang by locals, struck without warning and vanished without a trace. The only clue was the star, branded into every scene of their destruction. The town whispered of curses, of spirits tied to an old legend about Aztec gold hidden in the nearby canyons. Sarah didn't believe in ghosts, but she believed in vengeance. "I'll find him," she said, her voice hard. "And I'll kill him." Jack studied her, barely 18, yet carrying the weight of loss and rage. She reminded him of someone, though he couldn't place who. "You go after him alone, you'll die," he said. "Let me handle it." "I don't trust you," she snapped. "You're just some drifter. For all I know, you're one of them." Jack didn't argue. Trust was a luxury he'd lost long ago. "Then stay out of my way," he said, turning to leave. But Sarah's voice stopped him. "You owe him," she said. "He wrote to you. He believed in you. Don't make his death mean nothing." The words hit like a bullet. Jack nodded, his jaw tight. "I'll find him. For Will." The town of Redstone, a half-day's ride from the ranch, was a cluster of saloons, general stores, and false hopes. Jack tethered Cinder outside the rusty spur, the liveliest joint in town, where information flowed as freely as whiskey. Inside, the air was thick with smoke and the clatter of poker chips. Eyes followed him as he approached the bar, his reputation preceding him like a shadow. "Barkeep," Jack said, sliding a coin across the counter. "Heard anything about the Phantom Gang?" The bartender, a wiry man with a scarred lip, glanced around before leaning in. "Folks say they ain't human. Strike at night, gone by dawn. Some reckon it's tied to that old Aztec curse, gold hidden in the Black Canyons. Makes men mad, they say." Jack's skepticism flickered, but he kept his face neutral. "Anyone else been hit?" "Half the ranches round here," the bartender said. "But Edward Crow's place. Tut. Funny, ain't it? Man owns half the county now, buying up land from folks who can't pay their debts. Jack's eyes narrowed. Edward Crow. The name rang a bell. William had mentioned a banker pressing him for payments. Where's Crow now? His office, most likely. Big place on Main Street. Can't miss it. As Jack turned to leave, a voice cut through the din. Silent Carter as I live and breathe. The speaker was a tall man in a tailored suit. His mustache waxed to perfection. Edward Crow himself, flanked by 2 hired guns. Heard you were dead. Folks keep saying that, Jack replied, his hand resting near his holster. You're doing well for yourself, Crow. Crow smiled, all teeth and no warmth. Business is good. Shame about Holt's ranch, though. I offered to buy him out, save him the trouble. He refused. Seems like trouble found him anyway, Jack said, his tone flat. Crow's smile didn't falter. Careful, Carter. This ain't your fight. Jack held his gaze, then walked out, the weight of Crow's words settling like dust. The banker was involved, Jack could smell it. But how deep did it go? That night, Jack camped in the shadow of the Black Canyons, the jagged cliffs looming like the bones of the earth. The fire crackled as he studied William's letter again, searching for clues. A faint sound, a twig snapping, made him draw his gun. From the darkness emerged an old woman, her face lined like the desert itself. She wore a shawl woven with intricate patterns, and her eyes gleamed with unsettling clarity. You're the one they call Silent, she said, her voice low and melodic. I am May of the Dine. I know why you're here. Jack lowered his gun but stayed wary. Then talk. The star you seek, it is no bandit's mark. It is tied to the gold of the ancients, hidden long ago by those who fled the Spanish. The gold is cursed, silent. It breaks men, tears families apart. Those who seek it find only death. Jack's jaw tightened. I don't believe in curses. You will, May said, her gaze piercing. The gold calls to the greedy, to the broken. Call to your friend. It calls to you now. She vanished into the night before Jack could respond, leaving him with a chill that had nothing to do with the desert air. He didn't believe in curses, but he'd seen enough to know that greed could twist a man's soul as surely as any magic. The next morning, Jack returned to the ranch. Sarah was saddling a horse, her rifle slung across her back. I told you to stay put, Jack said, dismounting. And I told you I don't take orders, she shot back. I found something in Pa's study. A map, half-burned, with a star marked in the Black Canyons. I'm going there. Jack grabbed the map from her hands, ignoring her protests. It was crude, drawn in William's hand, with a star marking a spot deep in the canyons. This is suicide, he said. You don't know what's out there. I know I can't sit here doing nothing, Sarah said, her voice breaking. Pa was all I had. He took me in when I was a kid after my real folks died. I owe him this. Jack froze. Took you in. Sarah's eyes flickered with confusion, then hardened. Yeah. Found me after some raid, raised me as his own. Why do you care? Jack's heart pounded, a memory clawing its way to the surface. 10 years ago, his wife Mary and their daughter were killed in a raid on their farm. He'd been away, chasing a bounty, and returned to find the house in ashes. He'd assumed his daughter was dead, her body lost in the flames. But what if... Sarah, he said, his voice hoarse. What do you remember about your real folks? He frowned, wary. Not much. I was 6. Ma had dark hair like mine. Pa, he was always gone. Why? Jack's world tilted. The timing, the description. It couldn't be coincidence. But before he could speak, hoofbeats thundered in the distance. A dozen riders crested the ridge, their faces hidden by bandanas, the star symbol stitched onto their vests. The Phantom Gang. Get down! Jack shouted, pulling Sarah behind a water trough as bullets tore through the air. He returned fire, dropping 2 riders, but there were too many. The gang didn't press the attack. They fired a few more shots, then retreated, leaving another burned star on the barn. Sarah scrambled to her feet, her face pale. "They're toying with us. They're drawing us out," Jack said, reloading his revolver. "They want us in the canyons." "Then let's go," Sarah said, her eyes blazing. "I'm done running." Jack wanted to argue, to tell her the truth, but there was no time. The map, the star, the canyons, it all pointed to one place. "Stay close," he said. "And don't do anything stupid." The black canyons were a labyrinth of stone and shadow, the air heavy with the scent of dust and secrets. Jack and Sarah rode in silence, the map guiding them to a narrow pass where the star was marked. The deeper they went, the more Jack felt a strange pull, like a voice whispering at the edge of his mind. He shook it off, blaming the heat and May's cryptic words. They dismounted near a cave mouth, its entrance half hidden by boulders. Inside, the air was cool and damp, the walls etched with strange symbols, spirals, stars, and figures that seemed to writhe in the torchlight. Sarah's breath caught. "This is it," she whispered, pointing to a stone altar at the cave's heart. On it lay a single object, a golden idol, no bigger than a fist, shaped like a snarling jaguar with emerald eyes. Jack reached for it, but Sarah grabbed his arm. "Don't. What if May was right? What if it's cursed?" Before Jack could answer, a laugh echoed through the cave. A man stepped into the torchlight, his face scarred and familiar. Luke Ryder, Jack's old partner, thought dead these past 10 years. His eyes gleamed with malice, and behind him stood the Phantom Gang, their guns drawn. "Missed me, Jack," Luke said, his voice dripping with venom. "You left me to die in that ambush. Took me years to crawl back from hell, but I did. And now I've got the gold, and your daughter." Jack's blood ran cold. "You knew?" Luke grinned. "Oh, I knew. Found out when I tracked you after the ambush. William hid her well, but not well enough. Thought I'd use her to hurt you, but then I found this." He gestured to the idol. "This gold's worth more than every bounty we ever chased. And it's mine." Sarah's face twisted with confusion and rage. "What's he talking about, Carter? What daughter?" Jack's voice broke as he met her eyes. "Sarah, I'm your father. Your ma and I thought you died in that raid. William saved you, raised you. I didn't know until now." Sarah staggered back, her rifle slipping from her hands. "You're lying." "He ain't," Luke said, stepping closer. "And he's the reason your ma's dead. He was off chasing bounties while his family burned." "Shut up," Jack roared, drawing his gun. But Luke was faster, his shot grazing Jack's shoulder. Pain seared through him as Sarah screamed, diving for her rifle. The cave erupted in chaos, gunfire, shouts, and the clatter of bullets against stone. Jack fought through the pain, dropping 2 of Luke's men, but the gang closed in. Sarah fired, her aim true, taking down another. "Stay back," she shouted, her voice raw. But Luke grabbed the idol and bolted deeper into the cave, his men covering his retreat. Jack and Sarah pursued, weaving through tunnels until they emerged into a vast chamber lit by a shaft of sunlight from above. The walls glittered with veins of gold, the source of the legend. But the air felt wrong, heavy with an unnatural hum that made Jack's skin crawl. Luke stood at the chamber's center, the idol raised like a trophy. "This is power, Jack," he shouted. "This is what you threw away when you betrayed me." "You betrayed yourself," Jack said, his voice steady despite the pain. "You let greed twist you. Let it go, Luke. It's not worth it." Luke laughed, but his eyes flickered with something. Fear, maybe, or madness. The idol's emerald eyes seemed to pulse, and Jack saw it. A vision of his wife Mary calling his name, her voice laced with sorrow. He blinked, shaking it off, but Sarah gasped, her face pale. "I saw Pa William. He was begging me to run." "It's the gold," Jack said, realizing May's warning was true. "It's playing with our heads." Luke didn't seem to hear. He clutched the idol, muttering to himself, his men shifting uneasily. "It's mine," he snarled. "All of it." Jack saw his chance. "Sarah now," he shouted, diving for Luke. Sarah fired, her bullet clipping Luke's arm, making him drop the idol. It shattered on the stone floor, and a wave of energy pulsed through the chamber, knocking everyone back. The visions intensified. Jack saw Mary and his daughter, Sarah as a child, laughing in a field. Sarah saw William, smiling, telling her to forgive. Luke screamed, clutching his head, as if the idol's destruction had unleashed something inside him. He lunged at Jack, knife in hand, but Sarah stepped between them, her rifle raised. "Enough," she shouted. "It's over, Luke." Luke froze, his eyes wild. Then, with a guttural cry, he charged. Jack fired a single shot through the heart. Luke collapsed, his blood pooling around the shattered idol. The remaining gang members fled, their footsteps echoing into silence. Jack and Sarah stood panting, the weight of the moment crashing over them. She turned to him, her eyes wet with tears. "Is it true? You're my father." Jack nodded, his throat tight. "I didn't know, Sarah. I swear it. I thought I lost you." She shook her head, stepping back. "You left us. You left Ma to die." "I know," Jack said, his voice breaking. "I've carried that every day. I don't expect forgiveness. But I'm here now, and I'll do whatever it takes to make it right." Sarah's lip trembled, but she didn't speak. She turned away, staring at the glittering walls. "This gold, it's poison." May was right. They left the cave, the idol's fragments buried in the dust. Outside, the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the canyons. Jack expected Sarah to ride back to the ranch alone, but she paused, looking at him. "I don't know if I can forgive you," she said. "Not yet. But I don't want to lose you again." Jack's heart ached, a flicker of hope in the darkness. "I'll be there, Sarah. As long as you'll have me." They rode back to the ranch in silence, the star-marked gate swinging shut behind them. The phantom gang was gone, the curse broken, but the scars remained. Jack knew he'd never outrun his past, but for the first time in years, he felt a purpose beyond the next bounty. He had a daughter, and he'd fight to keep her, even if it meant facing every ghost he'd ever left behind. As the stars emerged over the desert, Jack glanced at Sarah, her face set with determination. The trail ahead was uncertain, but for now they rode together. And that was enough.